There is a quiet comfort in hearing one's own thoughts echoed back, a subtle relief when the world seems to agree. In these spaces, doubt softens, friction fades, and certainty feels warm. The echo chamber does not announce itself as a trap. It feels like belonging. It feels like safety. It feels like finally being understood. Yet beneath this calm agreement, something slowly narrows. Curiosity grows quieter. Complexity becomes exhausting, and the mind, once expansive, begins to circle the same ideas again and again, mistaking repetition for truth. The echo chamber is not built from ignorance alone. It is built from human longing, the need to feel right, the fear of being wrong, and the deep desire to be seen without resistance. When beliefs are mirrored back without friction, the nervous system relaxes. The shoulders loosen. The breath becomes shallow but calm. There is no need to explain, defend, or clarify. Understanding arrives without effort. Or at least, it feels like understanding. The echo chamber rarely announces itself as repetition. It feels more like alignment, a quiet sense that the world finally makes sense, that the chaos has edges now, that confusion has been replaced by clarity. In these spaces, thoughts move faster, words come easier, reactions feel justified. There is a sense of being part of something larger, an invisible agreement humming beneath conversations, headlines, and shared language. Beliefs are not questioned, they are reinforced. And reinforcement feels reassuring. The mind has always been drawn to familiarity. Long before modern algorithms, humans gathered around shared stories, shared fears, shared truths. Agreement meant safety. To think differently once meant isolation, exile, sometimes danger. The nervous system learned this lesson early. Sameness keeps you inside the circle. So when agreement appears, the body responds before the mind does. A subtle release of tension, a feeling of being held. Being right is not just intellectual, it is emotional. It carries the comfort of belonging. Inside the echo chamber, disagreement is rare or quickly softened. Language becomes predictable. Certain phrases repeat. Certain villains remain fixed. Certain heroes are always familiar. Over time, these repetitions begin to feel like reality itself. And reality, when simplified, feels manageable. There is a gentle pleasure in knowing what comes next, in anticipating responses, in seeing one's thoughts reflected instantly, sometimes even more eloquently by others. It creates a sense of coherence, an internal narrative that feels clean and uninterrupted. This is not stupidity. It is not weakness, it is the human brain seeking rest. Complexity demands energy. Nuance requires patience. Ambiguity asks the mind to hold opposing truths at once, and that is tiring. Agreement offers relief. It allows the mind to move on without lingering in uncertainty. Within the echo chamber, certainty becomes a form of emotional regulation. When the world feels unstable, belief becomes an anchor. When identity feels fragile, shared opinions become structure. The chamber does not just repeat ideas, it stabilizes the self. That is why leaving it feels uncomfortable long before it feels wrong. At first, there is no sense of confinement, only familiarity, only resonance. The boundaries are invisible. The walls are made of affirmation, not force. Nothing is taken away. Something is simply never introduced. Questions begin to disappear. Not intentionally, they just stop forming. Curiosity narrows quietly, like a lens slowly tightening. What once sparked interest now feels unnecessary, even irritating. Why look elsewhere when the answers already feel complete? The echo chamber rewards confidence, not curiosity. It values clarity over complexity, and in doing so, it trains the mind to prefer emotional ease over intellectual tension. There is also relief in moral certainty. Agreement often comes bundled with shared judgments about what is right, what is wrong, who is aware, who is blind. These judgments offer a sense of elevation, a feeling of standing on solid ground while others seem lost. This too is comforting, because doubt can feel like falling. Inside the echo chamber, doubt is not invited. It is reframed as weakness, confusion, or threat. Certainty becomes a shield, and the shield feels protective even when it quietly limits movement. At this stage, nothing feels dangerous, nothing feels restrictive. The chamber hums softly, like background noise that fades into normalcy. It feels like home, and that is why it works. Because before the echo chamber becomes a cage, it first becomes a refuge. And refuges are rarely questioned, until the silence inside them grows too loud. Long before opinions become articulated, they are absorbed, tone before language, mood before logic. Children learn what is acceptable not through argument, but through atmosphere. Which ideas are welcomed, which questions are ignored, which emotions are rewarded with warmth. Belonging begins early, and belonging always comes with conditions. A child does not consciously choose beliefs. Beliefs are inherited like gestures, accents, and emotional reflexes. They are learned by watching what brings approval and what brings distance. Agreement becomes a pathway to closeness. Disagreement becomes a risk. So the mind makes a quiet calculation: stay aligned, stay safe. Families, communities, and cultures provide more than values. They provide emotional maps. They teach what is normal, what is dangerous, and what is them. These categories form long before critical thinking matures. By the time logic enters, loyalty has already taken root, and loyalty feels like love. This is why beliefs often feel personal. They are woven into identity, memory, and emotional survival. To question a belief can feel like questioning the bond it came from. The mind does not separate ideas from attachment. It experiences disagreement as relational threat. The echo chamber in this sense is not new. It is ancestral. Humans evolved in small groups where shared understanding meant cohesion. Too much difference fractured trust. Too much questioning slowed action. Survival favored agreement. The nervous system remembers this history even when the environment no longer requires it. So when a group mirrors familiar beliefs, the body recognizes safety. It feels like returning to something known, something inherited, something proven by continuity. As identity forms, beliefs become more than thoughts, they become signals. They announce who belongs and who does not. They shape language, humor, values, and outrage. Over time, agreement stops being about truth and starts being about membership. To agree is to stay inside. To disagree is to step toward the edge. Social reinforcement strengthens this divide. Approval is subtle but constant. A nod, a laugh, a shared glance. These moments teach the mind which ideas are celebrated and which are quietly discouraged. Even silence becomes a lesson. Disagreement rarely arrives with punishment at first. More often, it meets discomfort, awkwardness, a pause that lingers too long. The mind learns quickly. It adjusts. This is how echo chambers form without intention. Later in life, these early patterns resurface in new forms. Political alignment, ideological communities, online spaces. The structure is different, but the emotional logic is the same. Belonging is offered in exchange for alignment. Certainty becomes the cost of entry, and the mind pays willingly. Because identity craves stability. It wants to know who it is in relation to others. Shared beliefs provide that clarity. They reduce ambiguity. They draw clean lines where reality is often blurred. Within the echo chamber, identity feels reinforced daily. Stories confirm existing narratives. Language stays consistent. Opposition is simplified. Complexity is externalized, something that exists outside the group, not within it. This allows the self to remain coherent. There is also relief in shared grievance. When frustration, anger, or fear is echoed, it becomes validated. Emotions feel justified rather than examined. The chamber does not ask where feelings come from. It simply agrees that they are correct. This agreement can feel like healing, but it is often stabilization, not resolution. Over time, the cost of leaving grows. Beliefs become interwoven with friendships, reputation, and self-image. To question one idea risks unraveling many connections. The mind senses this threat and tightens its grip. This is not stubbornness. It is protection. The echo chamber begins as inheritance. It grows through reinforcement. And it remains because it feels safer than standing alone with unanswered questions. Understanding this origin softens judgment. It reveals that behind every rigid belief is a history of attachment. Behind every closed mind is a nervous system trying to stay connected. And connection, once learned as survival, is not easily unlearned. Every moment, it filters overwhelming amounts of information, deciding what deserves attention and what can be ignored. This filtering is not neutral. It is shaped by emotion, memory, and expectation. The brain prefers what fits, what aligns, what confirms. This preference has a name, but it existed long before it was studied. Confirmation bias is the mind's tendency to notice, remember, and favor information that supports existing beliefs. It is not a flaw, it is a shortcut, one that conserves energy in a complex world. When information aligns with belief, it is processed smoothly. There is little friction. The brain experiences cognitive ease, a subtle sense of fluency that feels like understanding. When information contradicts belief, processing slows. Tension appears. The body registers discomfort. The brain interprets this discomfort not as curiosity, but as warning. Neuroscience shows that agreement activates reward pathways. Familiar ideas trigger small releases of dopamine, the same chemical involved in habit formation. Each confirming message becomes a tiny reinforcement, training the brain to return. Over time, beliefs become self-reinforcing loops. The more often they are echoed, the easier they are to recall. The easier they are to recall, the more true they feel. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates trust. Truth, in this sense, becomes emotional rather than evidential. The echo chamber works because it aligns with how memory functions. The brain strengthens neural pathways that are used frequently. Ideas encountered repeatedly gain mental priority, while others fade. Exposure shapes perception long before logic intervenes. This is why contradictory information often feels suspicious, even when it is accurate. It requires new pathways, new effort, new tolerance for uncertainty. The brain resists not because it is irrational, but because it is conserving resources. Emotional safety plays a central role. The brain evolved to detect threat quickly. Anything that challenges identity, worldview, or belonging can activate defensive responses. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, does not differentiate between social threat and physical danger. Disagreement can feel like danger. When this alarm is triggered, higher reasoning quiets. The prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for reflection and nuance, becomes less active. The mind shifts from exploration to protection. It searches for familiar ground. The echo chamber provides that ground instantly. Language within these spaces often carries emotional certainty, clear villains, simple explanations, predictable conclusions. This structure reduces cognitive load. It tells the brain, you are safe here, you understand this, and safety neurologically feels like truth. Digital environments amplify these patterns. Algorithms learn what captures attention and offer more of it, not to deceive, but to engage. The result is repetition, reinforcement, narrowed exposure. The brain adapts quickly, mistaking frequency for importance, yet the brain does not perceive this as limitation. It experiences it as clarity. Contradictory viewpoints, when encountered, are often processed through motivated reasoning. Evidence is evaluated not for accuracy, but for alignment. Supporting data is accepted easily. Challenging data is scrutinized, dismissed, or reframed. This process happens silently, automatically, without conscious intent. The mind believes it is thinking freely, even as it follows familiar grooves. There is also emotional regulation at play. Certainty reduces anxiety. Ambiguity increases it. The echo chamber offers immediate relief from the discomfort of not knowing. It answers questions quickly, even when the answers are incomplete. The brain rewards this relief. Over time, curiosity becomes conditional. Exploration is allowed only within safe boundaries. The unfamiliar is associated with stress. The familiar becomes comforting even when it limits growth. Understanding this mechanism invites compassion, not for beliefs, but for the biology beneath them. The echo chamber is not a failure of intelligence. It is the nervous system doing what it was designed to do: reduce threat, conserve energy, maintain coherence. The cost is subtle. The mind becomes efficient but less expansive, protected but less flexible, certain but less curious. And yet, none of this is permanent, because the same brain that adapts to repetition can adapt to openness when safety allows it. The mind notices it but does not engage fully. It pauses, then moves on. Dismissal feels easier than examination. The nervous system senses friction and quietly redirects attention towards safer ground. This is not avoidance by choice. It is reflex. When a belief is challenged, the body reacts before the mind can respond. Muscles tighten. Breath shortens. A subtle irritation appears. These sensations are signals not of intellectual threat, but of emotional disruption. The internal narrative has been interrupted. The echo chamber has trained the mind to expect harmony. Dissonance feels intrusive. Cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of holding conflicting ideas, does not announce itself clearly. It shows up as unease, as impatience, as the sudden urge to discredit the source rather than examine the content. The mind looks for escape routes. Rationalization becomes the first line of defense. Information that challenges belief is reframed as biased, exaggerated, or ill-intentioned. The person delivering it becomes suspect, their credibility questioned, their motives examined more closely than the idea itself. This process feels like discernment. It feels like critical thinking. But often, it is protection wearing the mask of logic. Within the echo chamber, these defenses are mirrored and reinforced. Others respond similarly. Agreement returns quickly, soothing the initial discomfort. The system corrects itself. Balance is restored. The conflict dissolves without resolution. Over time, the threshold for discomfort lowers. Even mild challenges begin to feel hostile. The mind becomes quicker to categorize, label, and dismiss. Nuance is experienced not as depth but as threat. This is how polarization deepens quietly. There is also an internal cost. Suppressed doubt does not disappear. It settles beneath certainty, creating a faint tension that hums in the background. The mind works harder to maintain coherence. Certainty requires constant reinforcement. This effort is rarely conscious, but it is tiring. Moments of fatigue appear, a sense of repetition, a subtle boredom with familiar narratives that once felt energizing. The echo chamber continues to speak, but something inside listens less attentively. Yet leaving still feels impossible, because disagreement has become associated with disconnection. To entertain opposing ideas feels like stepping toward isolation. The mind imagines social loss, identity fracture, emotional exposure. The cost feels too high, so the conflict remains internal. The echo chamber teaches that certainty equals strength, doubt equals weakness. This framing discourages honest reflection. Questions are not forbidden, but they are discouraged through tone, reaction, and implication. Silence becomes safer than curiosity. There is also moral weight attached to belief. Ideas are no longer just opinions, they are values. To question them feels like betraying something sacred. The mind protects not just thoughts, but identity and meaning. This is where resistance hardens. Contradictory information is not simply ignored, it is actively opposed. Anger replaces discomfort. Mockery replaces curiosity. The emotional charge serves a purpose. It pushes the threat away, restoring a sense of control. Yet anger is also a signal. It points to vulnerability beneath certainty. The mind resists not because it is confident, but because it is afraid of what might unravel if certainty loosens. Beliefs hold stories together. They explain pain. They justify choices. They offer coherence to the past. To question them risks rewriting the narrative. And rewriting the narrative can feel like losing oneself. So the echo chamber tightens its hold. Agreement becomes louder. Opposition becomes more distant. The internal conflict is quieted through repetition, reassurance, and reinforcement. But the tension does not vanish. It waits. Because the mind, even when protected, remains sensitive to truth, not as fact, but as resonance. And when certainty begins to feel heavy rather than grounding, the conflict slowly shifts. It stops asking, "Is this wrong?" and begins asking, "Why does this feel so narrow?" That question marks the edge of something new. To hold complexity is not to abandon belief, but to loosen the grip around it. The mind begins to notice that certainty and openness are not opposites. That identity does not collapse when questions are allowed to exist. This learning is emotional before it is intellectual. At first, openness feels unstable. The echo chamber once offered firm ground. Outside it, there are fewer anchors. Opinions are less absolute. Language becomes tentative. The mind hesitates more often. This hesitation is not weakness, it is adjustment. Psychologically, the ability to tolerate ambiguity is a marker of emotional maturity. It requires the nervous system to remain regulated without relying on rigid explanations. This is difficult work. The brain prefers closure. It prefers clean endings, but growth rarely provides them. As complexity is introduced, old reflexes resurface. The urge to categorize, to simplify, to retreat, yet now, these urges are noticed rather than obeyed. Awareness creates space between reaction and response. This space is where integration begins. The mind learns to listen without immediate judgment, to allow unfamiliar ideas to exist without requiring agreement, to sit with discomfort without rushing to resolve it. These moments stretch cognitive and emotional capacity. They also reveal something unexpected. Openness does not dissolve identity, it refines it. Beliefs become less performative, less about signaling membership, more about personal meaning. The need for constant reinforcement fades. Certainty becomes quieter, more internal. There is relief in this quiet. Holding complexity also deepens empathy. When the mind recognizes its own limitations, it becomes less eager to reduce others to labels. Perspectives once dismissed as wrong are now seen as partial, like all perspectives. This does not mean all ideas are equal. Discernment remains. But it is no longer driven by fear. It is guided by curiosity and context. The nervous system adapts gradually. Exposure to difference no longer triggers immediate threat. The amygdala quiets more quickly. The prefrontal cortex remains engaged longer. Reflection replaces reaction. This shift is subtle but profound. Integration does not require constant openness. The mind still seeks familiarity. It still returns to known ideas. But these returns are conscious rather than compulsive. The echo chamber loses its exclusivity. Beliefs become flexible rather than brittle. There is also grief in this stage. Grief for the simplicity that has been lost, for the comfort of certainty, for the ease of belonging without question. Complexity demands effort. It asks more of the mind, yet it gives more in return. Depth replaces speed. Understanding replaces agreement. Conversations become less predictable, but more alive. The mind feels engaged rather than soothed. This is not a state of constant uncertainty. It is a balance, a willingness to revise, a comfort with partial answers, a respect for the limits of knowledge. Psychologically, this is integration, the ability to hold opposing truths without fragmentation, to accept that reality is layered, that meaning is contextual, that understanding evolves. The echo chamber promised safety through sameness. Integration offers stability through flexibility, and flexibility, once learned, becomes a quiet strength. It allows the mind to move without breaking, to listen without dissolving, to change without losing coherence. This is not the end of belief. It is the end of belief as shelter. Belief becomes a lens, not a wall, and through that lens, the world appears less certain but more real. There is no constant affirmation, no familiar rhythm guiding every thought. Instead, there are pauses, gaps, moments where meaning is not immediately clear. At first, these silences feel uncomfortable. The mind reaches for structure, for something known, but gradually, the silence begins to breathe. Without the echo, thoughts no longer return unchanged. They travel outward, encounter resistance, and come back altered, softer in some places, sharper in others. This movement creates depth. Understanding becomes layered rather than flat. Curiosity returns quietly, not as urgency, but as presence. The need to be right loosens. Listening becomes possible without preparing a response. Attention shifts from defending beliefs to exploring experience. This is not agreement, it is engagement. Beyond the echo chamber, difference is no longer automatically threatening. It becomes informative. Each perspective reveals a boundary of understanding, a reminder that no single view holds the whole. This awareness carries humility. Not the performative kind, but the grounded recognition of limitation. The mind learns to say, "This is what makes sense to me for now," without needing that sense to be universal. Beliefs soften into frameworks rather than fortresses. there is also a new relationship with uncertainty. What once felt destabilizing now feels open-ended. Questions are allowed to remain unanswered. Complexity is not rushed into resolution. The nervous system adapts. It finds stability not in sameness but in flexibility. Emotional regulation comes from curiosity rather than certainty. The mind trusts itself to navigate ambiguity. This trust is quiet. Beyond the echo, connection changes. It is no longer based solely on alignment, but on presence. Conversations deepen. Listening becomes an act of respect rather than evaluation. Difference does not dissolve connection, it enriches it. There is loss here. Some communities feel more distant. Some identities feel less defined. The clarity of versus them fades. This can feel like grief, but there is also gain. A sense of spaciousness emerges. The mind feels less crowded, less reactive. Thoughts have room to evolve. Beliefs can change without crisis. Identity becomes dynamic rather than fixed. The echo chamber once offered certainty. Beyond it there is meaning. Meaning that shifts, adapts, and deepens with experience. This is not a destination. There is no final state beyond the echo. The mind may return to familiar spaces. It may seek comfort in agreement again. This is human. But now there is awareness of the echo, awareness of its comfort, awareness of its limits. And with awareness, choice becomes possible, not as obligation, but as openness. The world does not demand that beliefs be abandoned, only that they remain alive. Alive enough to listen, alive enough to question, alive enough to change. Beyond the echo chamber, truth is not louder, it is wider. And in that widening, the mind finds not certainty, but depth.